Morning, folks. The Corona Chronicles just continue and get stranger and weirder. Yesterday was a difficult one for me. It was the first time since the lockdown that I had a bad day emotionally. I was also not feeling very well physically. I feel a lot better today, but I'm still a bit kind of fatigued. But yesterday was a rough day and very unpleasant. I think when it really came to dawn on me was when getting back from the shops yesterday being hassled by a police roadblock. Even though I had bags of groceries in the back, they were like, where else are you going? Where else are you doing? What else are you doing? And realizing that I am in many ways locked into a world that's only 2 kilometers. You have no idea how strict the lockdown has been here in Ireland. And I can't move outside 2 kilometers. I can't visit my friends. I can't get to my studio. And now the government the other day said, we're going to do you a favor. You can now go 20 kilometers. I'm 22 kilometers from the beach and 25 kilometers from my art studio. And I'm just, it just came. There was a rotten, horrible energy yesterday. And even though the weather was beautiful and sunny, it was awful. There was a stagnation or a feeling of decay in the air. And it just hit me really bad. Went into a very dark place, and it seemed like there was no way out. That like it just seemed like hopeless for That's not my nature. I'm not normally like this, and I'm pretty tough and I can handle just about anything thrown at me. But this was different. This was like it was like rather than some like deranged old slag on the internet attacking me or something like this. This was like someone with power, a government. And so then the gods arrived, and the most remarkable thing happened. Suddenly, out of the blue, everything changed. It turns out that the guy called Professor Ferguson, Neil Ferguson, the guy called is known as Professor Lockdown, who is responsible for the global lockdown because it's based on his pandemic spreading models, very similar to the climate change models, which are all faulty, that these nerds use, that inspired the whole world to go into lockdown. The whole scientific dictatorship thing. Well, he's a scientist. He's at University Imperial College London. He has models, computers. He's a science man, so therefore he's infallible. And this is how the scientific dictatorship works. And this is how it functions. The scientists are never liars. The scientists are all decent people. This is the kind of propaganda we've been sold for the last 25 years. The scientists don't make mistakes. Trust the science. And I've had people over this pandemic thing who unfriend me and block me on Facebook, people I know personally, because I didn't trust the scientists and always trust the science. And so it turned out, through a remarkable series of events, that he was having an affair with some married woman. And he was traveling not just once, but constantly now, it turns out, over the lockdown distance to have sex with this woman, who was now, I don't care one iota about his private life. I don't, once as a consenting adults, I don't care. That's not the important part. The media will try to spin this as saucy rump professor, and to try and take your mind off the ball that it's actually he's a scientific fraud at the head of the greatest scientific fraud in history. And he he was meeting her, and I guess assumed that like her husband, and probably another pencil neck cook, geek, climate change activist. It all probably found out somehow and went to the media or something like that, and that's the end of him. No, no, that's the end of this. We've been found out now that these he didn't believe there was a pandemic. For all his modelling, it's the same reason that the woman he was with, who's a climate change activist, who's part of some group to end fossil fuels, they're all like the wealthy establishment Guardian readers, New York Times reader types. And New Statesman magazine types, and they all go to the same kind of universities, and it's all based around the City of London, the London School of Economics, the Imperial College. It's all based around these same people, and these are people are dangerous and have enslaved the world with this scientific dictatorship. But she'd be a climate change activist against fossil fuels, but she'd probably be still flying first class in jets 20, 30 times a year to the other side of the world, to the southern hemisphere, because it's the whole thing is do as we say, not as we do. This is how they function, these people. Because deep down inside, she knows there is no climate change emergency, and she is doing this. That's just like Greta Thunberg, and her parents know there isn't any. She behaves like this because she knows it's a scam to control the ordinary people. And he knew the same thing too. And that's why he broke the limit. He knew there was no danger of infection. And he also made up a fake story now that he claimed that he had COVID-19 right after he released his model proving that it would cause the greatest pandemic in history. Now, we'll talk about the kind of people they are later, but let's talk about like this whole thing, how we got here. Do you remember, this has been going, and it ties into the transhumanist thing as well. Remember back in the day, there was all kinds of movies like Revenge of the Nerds, and it was always the same thing. Jocks were bad guys and bullies and thugs, and the nerds who were scientifically minded were good, kind, decent people, and they were being picked on unfairly by the jocks. It was the other way round. The jocks were trying to save manhood and the world from these devious little monsters. Every little geek I knew like that, like the real life Ernest from Revenge of the Nerds, the real life version of that, they were all sneaky little shits, every last one of them. And most jocks I've met were actually nice, really great guys. So they used Hollywood to twist that around to say that your saviors are not strong male role models. They're degenerates and cretins like Bill Gates and Neil Ferguson. Now, how Neil Ferguson's, now let me talk about this. There's a sexual element to this as well. A lot of these types are big into BDSM stuff. You hear about satanic pedophile. That's the least what they do. A lot of them are into this rough, nasty, dirty sex, and you would probably find out that your man discovered that his wife was having an affair with Ferguson because he probably saw cigarette burns on her body. This is what these types are into. Now, to further compound that, Ferguson was behind the foot and mouth thing of about 18, 16, 17 years ago that locked down Ireland for a short, and not like this, but it was a big deal as well, using the same models. It led to the cull of millions upon millions of cattle unnecessarily in England. Now, and all the scenes of cattle burning. Now, he was responsible for this mass slaughter of livestock. And here we are again, his sexual degeneracy comes to the fore. That was a whole period of the news showing these like harmonious Bosch like imageries of piles of cows with smoke coming off them after they had been culled, animals being shot. Remember that in Ireland who kept showing wild animals like wild goats being shot and falling dead down the mountains by army snipers. And now we have again the same thing. You're imprisoned, you're locked down like a gimp. You're held in bondage. You'll have a policeman wear rubber gloves, the mask. And this same harmonious Bosch type imagery that Ferguson sold again of the diseased and the plague and the broken and the infected walking across the land, infecting one another, plaguing one another. Now that was an insight into his sexuality. Now that's why his sexual relationship with this climate change activist married woman would be very much, I would nearly bet money on things, degenerate behaviour like that. That's what they're like. That's what they're like. And I'll give you an example of this. That happened to me in real life. About 12 years ago, I met this woman from the Cambridge Socialist Workers Party. A posh snob, a disgusting individual. Horrible. She one night in an Indian restaurant in England tried to crush my testicles by walking along a bench I was sitting on and went lifted her foot up like this and tried not to like to push down on my balls and just missing them. And I was, what the fuck was that? What she was doing, she was sending me a message that these sex freaks do, that this is what I'm into. Are you into this too? And that's how he would have got into his relationship with her. He might have said nonchalantly that one time he was in an S&M club and he accidentally burned a woman with a cigarette and she liked it. These are then they'd be sending pictures of weapons to each other and things like this. Is what they're like. These nerds and these crazy bitches. This is these vicious bitches and these establishment middle class types. This is what they're into. And this is what turns them on with each other. And you can see that now with the whole how the lockdown was so BDSM and the whole thing about and clapping for your prisoner, this kind of thing. Lock me down more. Lock me in. Lock me down more. Lock me down, Professor Ferguson. No, 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 I've been bad. I wanted to go shopping. I wanted to go to the beach. Oh, punish me, Professor Ferguson. You see what I'm saying? And then the same thing with the cattle. The burning flames, the smoke coming off the cattle. And it's always the same types, upper middle class educated types that are like this. It's always been the freaks, but the Profumo affair. Do you remember that in the 60s? The file surrounding Prince Philip is still sealed until 50 years after his death. These are what they're into. This is the weird shit, the weird bondage, S&M, BDSM stuff they're all into, but it's extreme. It's cutting and biting and burning and slashing and using lighted cigarettes and stubbed out on bodies and things like that. And this is probably what this world this degenerate nerd creep world is now running this planet through university professors, politicians, particularly unelected bureaucrats and civil servants. And then all the range of all the scientists who saying you can't do this, you can't. It's science, it's science, it's science, it's science. And you had this whole thing where you'd have like the women very similar to the woman who was fucking or whatever she was doing with Ferguson on the BBC going, Professor Brian Cox, absolutely gorgeous. He's absolutely... And you had to insert the word absolutely gorgeous every time you said Professor Brian Cox. Did you notice that? They'd have to have a woman on the BBC saying absolutely gorgeous. Now, we were sold a lie when we were in school that the jocks and the nerds were the evil ones. And the geeks who, picked their nose and ate their own snots, and did push their spectacles in like this when they spoke, before they went condescending with you, were the great guys. And now we're living in a world run by one of them, Gates, and people like him, Ferguson. And these people are fucking freaks. These are not human beings. Look at them. Like someone said on the quotes yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg's wax doll in Madame Tussauds looks more real and human than the actual Mark Zuckerberg does. These people have no souls. These people have no inner world inside them. They're completely controlled by mathematics and responses. And I don't even know if they're human. Now, the fact that Ferguson could make that incompetent catastrophe with the foot and mouth thing and still get a top job and still be influencing to the point where they were calling him Professor Lockdown. If you live in the United States, you are locked down because of this guy who was visiting his climate change activist married girlfriend. Because he knew there was no pandemic. He knew there was no risk of infection. So suddenly today everything feels different. And now it comes out the Scottish Health Minister travelled twice outside the limit to visit her luxury second home, holiday home. It turns out that some other guy in Pittsburgh, a professor who probably was discovered that it was all a scam, was suddenly found dead in a murder-suicide, while Gates is ramping it up. I would love to see someone like Ryanair sue Imperial College London for the losses that they've incurred. Or someone that everyone should get together. The only way we'll ever shut these people down is for all the the businesses and companies that lost all the money because of Professor Lockdown Ferguson, now that he's been exposed as a fraud. And there is no pandemic because he proves it. If there was a pandemic and he believed it, he'd be locked up at home. He knew there was none. He lied about that. He lied about having COVID-19. He probably had the sniffles. Oh, well, he probably had COVID-19, but well, like I and everyone else did back in January and December. But we have been sold a monumental lie. And it's the intrinsic link between these people and the climate change people has also been proven. They run on the same thing, destroying humanity, shutting down human commerce in order to fulfill the gods of mathematics. That's what they worship, mathematics. They know absolutely, they don't even know what human sexuality is. So therefore, look, I mean, how he could sit there and say every cow in the country has to be born. And I'll never forget when that was going on. The British news was filled with scenes of poor farming families sobbing while all their cows were being burned by the military in the background in a big pile of corpses. It was to turn on the likes of Ferguson and Tony Blair and all these other cretins. And they were like rubbing their genitals watching the TV. Look at all the fire, darling. Oh, look at all, darling. Look at all the fire. This is why they kill foxes and badgers. This is why they go on the hunt dressed in red velvet to slaughter mother foxes so the baby foxes die in the hole in the ground, and then go back home and go, I'm terribly concerned about climate change. Oh my God! Can I put another electrode on your nipples, darling? This is what they're like, and these people are still running the world. This is what these freaks are like. And then the rest of them, they're not like that. There's absolutely nothing in there. They're Bill Gates or Zuckerberg types. There's nothing in there. Nothing inside them. And we were given, and now I look at the RTE, Irish Propaganda Service, website this morning, and it's all about, maybe it's time to end things. Let's lock down, and it's all this kind of stuff. Suddenly, they're all ending the lockdown happy. That's because Irish politicians, bureaucrats and civil servants were on the phone last night saying, start spinning around to get out of this fucking thing or we're all screwed. That's what that was all about. Trust the science. For science. Revenge of the Nerds. Oh, Ernst, they were so cute the way they had it. And all the jocks were like, mm-hmm. No, the jocks were saving us. They were the men. They were the men. The jocks were the good guys. They were the ones saving us. The men who were fighting for the women to keep these things away from them. Because when he'd want to be with the girl, he would want, can I put an electrode on your clitoris? That's what they would have been like. Where she would have had a normal sexual life with the jock. Romance, you know. This is the world that we've inherited. The meek have inherited the earth, but the meek are twisted and perverted because they are meek. They are meek. And it's now I feel a lot better because of, it was like the gods arrived last night and handed us a gift. It was almost like at the darkest moment last night, a sibyl came from beyond and handed it this. Here you go, my friends, Professor Ferguson. This is the demon. You are now free. That's how it felt yesterday. So it really was the darkest before the light. It really was that, like the star card moment in the tarot. And I feel a lot better today. And, there's a natural order to the universe. There's a natural justice. And you'll always find that the ones who the universe wants you to be here always are taken care of. And the ones that are in violation of natural law always destroy themselves. The universe doesn't destroy them. It gives them the means to destroy themselves. So there's a lot more to be positive about today. The sun is still shining, and we're definitely on the escape hatch now. We've found the parachutes. The plane has been going down, but we found the parachutes, and we're safe now. So be very careful. The media are going to try and spin this whole thing of Ferguson as the saucy professor and the naughty climate change activist. This will be to try and take your eye off the ball of how corrupt they are, and how wicked they are, and what they're really like. This wasn't a naughty sex romp between Professor and Carry On Climate Change woman. These are these are these are devious evil freaks, and there's nothing likable about them, and they have a lot of power in this world through things like bureaucracy in the civil service and tenureship at universities, and it's time for this to end. If someone like Michael O'Leary of Ryanair is out there, I would love to see him sue Imperial College London and turn that place to dust. Everyone should if they can. And yeah, there you go. The demons were defeated by a gift from the gods. Take care of yourselves. And that's a very Luciferian moment, what happened with Ferguson, by the way. People say to me, why are you Luciferian? And I'll say, I'm a pagan Luciferian because God Lucifer, represented by the planet Venus, is the morning star. It gives hope. It blasts through clarity from in the darkness. And if what happened to Ferguson yesterday wasn't a Luciferian moment, I don't know what is. Ave Lucifer, and long live the horn gods.